The waves crashed softly against the wooden posts of the Santa Monica Pier, glimmering under the bright California sun. Children laughed near the carousel. Couples walked hand in hand and seagulls danced in the sky. Amid that perfect scene sat a young girl named Mara Evans, 17 years old, in a worn-out wheelchair near the railing, her small hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the horizon as if the ocean could somehow understand her better than people ever had. But peace for Mara was always borrowed time, because in a world that should have been full of color and kindness, cruelty often found its way to her first. If you believe that kindness still has the power to change hearts and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Together we can make the world just a little softer for souls like Mara's. That afternoon, the pier was busy, alive with tourists and street performers. The smell of roasted peanuts mingled with ocean salt. Mara's father, Tom Evans, a construction worker with tired eyes and calloused hands, had brought her here as he did every Sunday. "You love the sea, baby girl," he'd said, smiling as he went to buy her favorite lemonade. Mara had been born with cerebral palsy, and though her legs had never carried her weight, her spirit had always run farther than most could imagine. Yet behind her soft brown eyes lived a quiet ache, the kind only those who've been stared at too long, pitied too often, and mocked too cruelly could ever truly understand. She was sketching the Ferris wheel in her small notebook when they came, the three boys she recognized from the local high school, the kind that thrived on weakness. Their laughter cut through the air like broken glass. "Well, if it isn't the pier princess," sneered Ryan, the tallest of the three, his baseball cap turned backward. His friends, Troy and Blake, snickered behind him. "What are you doing here, Mara? Looking for sympathy again?" Her hand trembled over the paper, the pencil breaking in half. She said nothing, just looked down, hoping silence might make them disappear. But cruelty never needed permission. It only needed opportunity. Ryan stepped closer and kicked one of the wheelchair's front wheels. "Move, Cripple," he hissed. Mara's body jolted forward, her small bag falling to the wooden planks. Her sketchbook tumbled open, pages fluttering, drawings of wings, oceans, and sunsets flying away like broken dreams. The laughter around her grew louder. Someone took out a phone. People watched, some gasping softly, but no one moved. She tried to reach for her book, but her shaking hands couldn't grab it before Ryan stumped on the page, smearing the pencil lines under his shoe. "You think anyone cares about your stupid drawings?" A woman nearby whispered. Someone stop them. But her voice faded into the sound of the waves. Mara's throat closed, tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not again. She wanted to scream, to tell them she mattered, but her words never found the air. Instead, she sat there, frozen, small, humiliated under the golden daylight. Then came the sound, deep, distant, and growing louder. The low roar of engines, a thunder that seemed to rise from the horizon. Heads turned. The laughter stopped. Over the crest of the boardwalk came a line of motorcycles, black, chrome, and sunlit. A dozen at least, each one gleaming like a moving wall of steel. They rolled in slow, steady, and silent except for the deep rumble of engines. The crowd parted like a tide, and at the front rode Cole Hartman, a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s with silver hair tied back and a weathered leather jacket that read Iron Saints MC. He cut the engine and looked around, his sharp blue eyes landing on Mara's trembling figure. Behind him, his riders, men and women of all ages, shut off their bikes, boots hitting the wood in unison. Cole's gaze shifted to the three boys. "Something wrong here?" he asked, voice low, calm, but edged with steel. The silence that followed was louder than the engines had been. Ryan scoffed weakly, but the tremor in his hands betrayed him. "And no, sir. Just playing around." Cole's expression didn't change. He took a slow step forward until he stood between Mara and her bullies. "Playing? Ha!" He crouched to pick up Mara's torn sketchbook, dusted it gently, and handed it back to her. "This yours?" Mara nodded, barely whispering, "Yes." He smiled faintly. "You draw beautifully." Then he looked up at Ryan again. "Funny thing about bullies," he said, straightening up. "They always think nobody's watching. But someone always is." Within seconds, the rest of the bikers moved, without a word, forming a protective circle around Mara. The onlookers began to whisper. Some clapped quietly. Others recorded. Ryan's friends backed away first, muttering apologies that meant nothing. Ryan tried to stand his ground, But when Cole took one step closer, he dropped his eyes and muttered, "Sorry," before turning and running down the pier. Mara sat there, breathing hard, unsure whether to cry or speak. Cole knelt beside her again. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked gently. She nodded, but tears finally broke free. "Why did they hate me?" she whispered. Cole sighed. "Because they haven't learned what strength really looks like." He turned to the crowd. "And strength," he said, voice rising, "is not what you do to people weaker than you. It's how you lift them when the world knocks them down." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then louder, fuller, echoing across the pier. The bikers began to cheer softly for her. One woman in the group, Nina, handed Mara a small pendant shaped like an angel wing. "You keep this," she said. "You remind yourself, you've got people watching over you, even when you don't see them." Tom returned moments later, panic on his face as he pushed through the crowd. When he saw his daughter surrounded by bikers, he froze, not understanding. Cole stood up and extended a hand. "You her dad?" Tom nodded, his voice shaking. "I am." Cole's voice softened. "She's a brave one. Don't ever let her forget that." That night, as the sun dipped into the Pacific, the Iron Saints rode with Mara and her father along the coastal road. The wind caught her hair, and for the first time in months, she felt weightless. Cole rode beside her wheelchair, now fixed and shining under the sunset. They stopped at a small diner afterward, and the bikers told her stories of hard lives, second chances, and kindness found in unlikely places. Mara listened with her heart wide open. Over the weeks that followed, something changed. Cole visited often, bringing sketchbooks and art supplies. Nina taught Mara to paint using her wheelchair tray as an easel. The bikers even installed a ramp outside her small apartment for free. They called her Little Saint. In return, Mara painted for them murals of angels, roads, and freedom that soon covered the walls of their clubhouse. Her art spoke louder than any words she could have ever said. But the real change came when a video surfaced. Someone had recorded that moment at the pier. The bullying, the rescue, the wall of bikers forming around her. Within days, it spread across social media. Millions watched, and millions wept. People began sending letters, drawings, donations, messages of love. Mara's story became a beacon of hope for those who had been silenced by fear. And as the world saw her strength, those boys, Ryan and his friends, faced the kind of reflection they'd long avoided. Ryan came to her house one afternoon, eyes red, voice trembling. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything." Mara looked at him quietly. "You hurt me," she said softly, "but I hope someday you'll help someone instead." Ryan nodded, tears spilling down. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't sound like victory. It sounds like peace. Months later, Mara held her first small art exhibition at a local community center with help from the Iron Saints. The title read, "Wings of the Pier." Her father stood beside her, tears in his eyes, while bikers filled the room like proud guardians. People came from miles away to see her work. Paintings that told stories of pain, courage, and healing. In the corner, Cole smiled quietly, arms folded. "You did it, Little Saint," he whispered. Under the soft daylight filtering through the windows, Mara looked out and saw faces of strangers smiling at her art. Faces that once might have looked away, now glowing with compassion. And for the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt infinite, like the ocean she'd loved since she was a child. The same ocean that had witnessed her pain now reflected her strength. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in kindness, courage, and the power of standing up for those who can't stand for themselves, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your small act of support helps us bring more real stories of hope and humanity to light. Before you go, we'd love for you to comment one word that describes how this story made you feel, so Mara's courage can ripple through every heart that reads it. Because sometimes, the loudest voice isn't the one that shouts, it's the one that keeps standing tall, even when the world tries to push it down. And that's exactly what Mara Evans did on that bright day at Santa Monica Pier. The sea of bikers didn't just protect a girl that day. They reminded the world what kindness looks like when it rides in with roaring engines and gentle hearts.